Good morning, everyone, and welcome to an impromptu stream for an article read. Haven't done one of these in a while. Hope you're all doing well. I didn't do a Sunday stream this weekend because I was off visiting the folks with Sister Scribe, but I am back once again, and because of the federal holiday, my workday is relatively truncated. And as a result of that, I was looking at Twitter and came across, the headline you see there is the headline of the actual article, but let me read you the text on the tweet that caught my attention. The New York Times, in opinion, how did modern feminism lose Roe v. Wade? Asks Susan Faludi, a journalist, in a guest essay. Quote, an answer lies in Depp v. Heard. And I'm just too curious not to find out how Johnny Depp v. Amber Heard has anything to do or say about the potential downfall of Roe v. Wade. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing. Now, unfortunately, I cannot show you the text of the article as I go on because I don't have access to the New York Times directly, but I have the text of the article itself. So I'm going to be reading it. This is mostly a sound podcast type deal. Another thing, too, to note is that I am not a legal expert, and I'm certainly not an expert on the history of Roe v. Wade. I have a layman's understanding, more or less, of the legal situation regarding Roe v. Wade. So if in the course of this I make comments or criticisms of the article that are of a legal nature, trust me, I am more than happy to be corrected if I say something that is completely off base. But you'll have to handle that in the chat and or the comments in the future. But for those of you that are joining me briefly, who's here? Lurking Gopher, John Kelly, No Name, Raziel, Bridget, Zanwild, and Sora Luna, good morning. Yes, apologies to those of you coming in later on or late. This was not planned, totally off the cuff. So yes, you'll just have to listen to the musings of my beautiful voice as I read to you the text of this article. Now, I have not read this yet. This is my first time in, so here we go. By Susan Faludi. Miss Faludi. Miss Faludi is a journalist and the author of Backlash, the Undeclared War Against Women, among other books. All right, here we go. 1 month almost to the day after Americans learned of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's draft opinion that would eviscerate the constitutional right of women to control their bodies and so their lives. Okay, here's my first tippy toe into the legal realm. Roe v. Wade is not a constitutional right. Roe v. Wade was a legal opinion that has been over time conflated into a constitutional question. So if that's what she's going at, that's not correct. That's why it can be easily ignored because it's not law. It's not an amendment to the Constitution. Anyway, control their bodies and so their lives. Millions sat glued to their screens to witness the verdict in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial, in which the jury awarded more than $10 million to Mr. Depp. In a statement afterward, Miss Heard said she was, quote, disappointed with what this verdict means for women. It sets back the clock, she said, to a time when women who spoke up and spoke out could be publicly shamed and humiliated, unquote. Well, given the evidence, it could be said that you were publicly shaming and humiliating an innocent man, but either way. The ruination of Roe and the humiliation of Miss Heard have been cast as cosmic convergence, evidence of a larger forced retreat on women's progress. Quote, Johnny Depp's legal victory and the death of Roe v. Wade are part of the same toxic cultural movement. A Vox article asserted. Well, I mean, if Vox said it, it must be true. Quote, these examples may seem disparate, you don't say. But there's an important through line, a USA Today reporter wrote, citing academics who linked the Alito draft opinion, the Depp Heard mobbing, the Depp head mobbing. Depp head? Is that what they called the fans? The Depp head mobbing and, for good measure, the public consumption of cleavage at the Met Gala held the same night the Supreme Court draft leaked. quote, "This is backlash." What? Let me try that again. Okay. So a USA Today reporter wrote, citing academics, linked the Alito draft opinion, Depp head mobbing, and the public consumption of cleavage at the Met Gala as backlash against women in general. Okay. Backlash it may be. It's funny how she uses that word when it's the title of her own book. Even so, putting the pillorying of Miss Heard in the same backlash deplorables basket as the death rattle of Roe is a mistake. It is? Well, you seem to have based your entire article around the notion, so do tell. Lost in the frenzy of amalgamation lies a crucial distinction. There's a through line, all right. Both are verdicts on the recent fraught course of feminism. Feminism? Okay, Roe v. Wade, you might have an argument. Amber Heard essentially framing Johnny Depp for spousal abuse? Okay, do tell. But one tells the story of how we got here, the other where we're headed. How did modern feminism lose Roe v. Wade? An answer lies in Depp v. Heard. All right, here we go. Quote, "I became a public figure representing domestic abuse," unquote, Miss Heard wrote in a Washington Post opinion essay in 2018, which set off Mr. Depp's defamation rampage. Defamation rampage. She was also, quote unquote, representing the ACLU, to which she had promised half of her $7 million divorce settlement. Was it half? I thought it was all of it. Okay. As one of its ambassadors for women's rights. The gig placed her squarely in the tradition of feminism's vaunted fourth wave revival of the early 2010s. Are we in a fourth wave? I didn't know we'd exited the third wave. How does the fourth wave contrast with the third wave? I don't know, honestly. That we have harnessed social media to achieve unthinkable heights of entertainment and commercial popularity. What? Oh, sorry. That wave harnessed? That wave harnessed social media to achieve unthinkable heights of entertainment and commercial popularity. Celebrities would, quote unquote, represent feminism, and their feminist fans would, quote unquote, like and retweet their stars' declarations into a viral solidarity that, it was hoped, would hasten change. Celebrity America signed on. From Miley Cyrus, quote, "I feel like I'm one of the biggest feminists in the world because I tell women not to be scared of anything," unquote. Well, thank you, Miley. Katy Perry, repudiating her previous repudiation of feminism, repudiating her repudiation. Quote, "I used to not really understand what the word meant, and now that I do, it just means that I love myself as a female, and I also love men," unquote. Boy, when I'm looking for really coherent opinions on social change and such, I go to celebrities. Kendall Jenner and Cara, I always screw up how to say this lady's last name. Cara Delevingne, Delevingne. I can see her face in my mind's eye, but I can never say her last name. Jenner and Delevingne led Chanel runway models brandishing, quote, "free freedom" picket signs at a feminist rally during Paris Fashion Week. Wow. Emma Watson started her He for She initiative as UN Women Goodwill Ambassador, inviting boys and men, quote, "to be seen and to speak up," unquote, for gender equality, setting off a cult of global ambassadorships for female empowerment. Yes, I did a couple of videos on He for She back in the olden days. What's going on with He for She lately? In holding men to account for things they don't necessarily do. Anyway. And of course, Beyonce performed before that giant feminist screen at the MTV Video Music Awards. How long ago was that again? And if you want to talk about, the embodiment of virtue signaling, a giant light bulb sign that says feminist. Yeah. Corporate America joined in, you don't say. Quote, by 2015, you couldn't swing a tampon without hitting someone or something that boasted its feminist import in places you definitely wouldn't expect. Nail polish, underwear, energy drinks, Swiffers, said Andy Ziesler, a bitch media co-founder, noted in her book, quote, we were feminists once, unquote. Oh my God. Spanx marketed power panties under the tagline, powerful women wear powerful panties, with the help of Tina Fey and Adele, who sang the shapewear's praises. Dior sold $700 shirts trumpeting Chimamanda. I don't know how to say this person's name, and I'm just going to butcher it. So, quote, we should all be feminist slogan, and donated parts of the proceeds to Rihanna's nonprofit organization. Yeah, it's almost like it was all a corporate ploy for profits, virtue signaling, and brand recognition. Amazing how that works. Corporations plastered "The future is female" banners on their websites and annual reports. Sheryl Sandberg, whose resignation as Meta COO came the same day as the Depp Heard verdict. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? Did Sheryl Sandberg resign because of the Depp Heard verdict? Is that what you're trying to imply? Or did the Depp Heard verdict go the way it did because Sheryl Sandberg resigned? Why would you put those two things in the same sentence? Sheryl Sandberg began her lean-in revolution by enlisting some celebrated feminists to post their lean-in moments. Yeah, Sheryl Sandberg, I think, was also part of that ban bossy thing. How did that go? At the time, it felt like a breakthrough. Quote, feminism's star has ascended, the feminist writer Jessica Valenti wrote in The Guardian in 2014. Boy, you're bringing out all the big guns here. Quote, feminism is no longer the F word. It's the realm of cool kids, unquote. Hadn't the opposition alienated women from feminism for decades by painting its proponents as unpopular drudges? Painting its proponents as no. Its proponents were primarily unpopular drudges. They didn't have to paint anything. It didn't take that much effort when you have someone that is just oftentimes just a man-hating nutbag that has gone so far beyond the actual benefits of second-wave feminism that they're now an extremist. But hey, whatever, moving on. That message saturated the 1980s media and pop culture backlash. Embrace feminism and wind up unloved, unwed, barren, and bonkers. If feminism was now cool, wasn't that a step forward? It depends on how you define feminism. Feminism as equal rights for women? Yeah, second wave feminism, etc. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But once you step beyond that and start saying that men are inherently evil, women are inherently victims, women need more favoritism than men because they're women, believe all women, allegations are evidence, and so on, that's when you've gone a bridge too far. But moving on. Quote, 2014 turned feminism into a brand, and that's not a bad thing, unquote. Quartz headlined an article at the end of that year by a young feminist named Jessica McCarthy. Don't know that one. Contemplating the promise of what she called, quote, the new millennial feminism my generation is ushering in, unquote. She understood the concerns of old guard feminist gatekeepers that a more commercial and celebrity-preoccupied feminism could undermine, quote, the collective spirit of the movement, unquote. The collective spirit. Have you ever tried to decipher all the different types of feminism that is out there? I mean, I did a video, if you can believe it, several years ago now, and I think it was called, what did I call it? It was something clever. I can't remember now. It was like sects. It was like rough sects, SECTS or something like that. Anyway, it covered a feminist doing a video on YouTube, and I went through and tried to find out at that time what were all the types of feminism there were, and it was a kaleidoscope. So the collective spirit, yeah, I don't know about that. But she decided there was nothing to fear. Quote, "This new wave that critically accepts new brands of feminism will never allow it to be sold," unquote. Really? All right. A reasonable hope. After all, a century earlier, hadn't suffragists opened Hadn't suffragists opened suffrage shops? Sally sells seashells by the seashore. Okay, after all, a century earlier, hadn't suffragists opened suffrage shops hawking, quote, "vote for women" products, commissioned movies, and landed endorsements from the silent stars Mary Pickford and Ethel Barrymore, and won enfranchisement by decade's end? Okay, suffragists and second-wave feminists you're putting in the same category as modern third and I guess now fourth-wave feminist movements. You understand that these are completely different planets of concerns and circumstances, right? Or maybe you don't. I don't know. But mass pop culture was in its infancy in the 1910s, yeah, and the commanding importance of celebrities had not yet come to define America. I really hope that celebrities haven't now defined America. But anyway, by the mid-2010s, what had once been a popularizing adjunct to feminism threatened to become the public face of feminism itself, and a model for how to be a feminist activist. An early referendum on these tactics came on November 8th, 2016, when Hillary Clinton's defeat. Hillary Clinton was defeated by opposition to feminism. Is that it? She wasn't defeated because she was a terrible candidate and ran a very weak campaign in the places in the country that she needed to run better? Oh, okay. In the aftermath, a vast array of unsung women returned to the old methods, nurturing a cumulative progressive awakening. Not just through the women's marches that drew millions to the streets across the country, and that we know now are completely racist, but also through hundreds of local and regional organizing initiatives. Female-led grassroots activist organizations such as Sister District, Black Voters Matter, Moms Rising, and Flippable showed up at town halls, convened community rallies, petitioned and canvassed and phone banked in a tradition that recalled American women's long century of struggle for the vote. They already had the vote. They've had the vote for a long time. Okay. That mobilization was soon overshadowed by #MeToo, which, despite its pre-hashtag precursor as a ground-level support system for Black girls victimized by sexual violence, pre-hashtag precursor? Okay, I do not know the entire history of two words mushed together, ironically reestablished a celebrity preoccupation with its intense focus on high-profile women denouncing high-profile men. Yeah, that was part of it, sure. Me Too drew badly needed attention to the scourge of sexual predation in the workplace and delivered a warning to men in power. It put a warning out that you could have your life totally destroyed by an accusation in the absence of evidence, amongst other things. I mean, for every legitimate exposure of someone having done something bad, there was tons of accusations and insinuations and lives ruined over allegations. But anyway, perhaps retribution against tabloid-worthy sexual miscreants sent a trickle-down message to middle management and the factory floor. But ultimately, the campaign's headline achievements were shaming male VIPs. Yeah, that's how they got the attention. That's how they got the donation money. What planet are you operating on? You think this is some like Revelation or something? Have you been paying attention to just feminism in general since, as you said, the 2010s? Creating constant and perpetual victimhood categorizations to raise money, to sell books, to get speakers' fees. Right? I mean, there's always going to be sexism on one side or the other aisle. There's always going to be racism and on and on and on. But it's when you try to profit off of these things by creating a scenario or a situation that makes victimhood a profitable business. And that's what feminism has been doing. I mean, honestly, for decades, but less legitimately for the last 20 years or so in particular. So, anyway. Using celebrity and hashtag feminism is a perilous way to pursue women's advancement because it falls victim so easily to its own tools and methods. Okay. In Miss Heard's case, her ex-husband turned Me Too's strategy against itself. Me Too strategy. I thought Me Too strategy was to expose and highlight sexual abuse, or domestic abuse of some kind or another. All right. So why is that only a one-way street then? Against itself? So Me Too is only a women's movement? Okay. Well, I mean, obviously it is, but okay. Mr. Depp claimed victimization because he's a money-generating personality. Wait, what? Okay, let me read that again. Mr. Depp claimed victimization because he's a money-generating personality. Oh, that's why he claimed victimization. It's not because he got his finger sliced off. It's not because he was beat up all the time. It's not because he was being defamed and humiliated and destroyed by a vindictive ex-wife. Okay. He could be defamed because he's famous. Yes. Yeah, that's how that works. You can be defamed and not be famous, but it's a heck of a lot easier to have your career destroyed if you're a public figure. What? Okay, well, what was happening to Amber Heard? Was she not being defamed because she's famous? Would anybody care about Amber Heard if she wasn't a movie star and, firstly, married to Johnny Depp? What are you talking about? And his massive and vicious fan mobilization on social media, nearly 20 billion views for Justice for Johnny Depp on TikTok by June 2nd, was overwhelming, even by Me Too standards. Well, how much Johnny Depp hate came out prior to the trial on behalf of Amber Heard? Are you going to acknowledge that? Okay. By contrast, hashtag Justice for Amber Heard had about 80 million views on TikTok in the same period. Okay, so because a hashtag for Amber Heard had less exposure and less attention than a hashtag for Johnny Depp, when Johnny Depp has been a Hollywood star for decades and Amber Heard has been Mrs. Johnny Depp for a couple of years and then got a role in Aquaman, and prior to that was, your mid-level movie actor. Okay. All right, so that's an injustice, is it? Her hashtag didn't get enough attention. That's an injustice. Okay. If you say so. Celebrity representation of feminism is a double-edged sword. All right. If an individual embodies the principle, which principle is that? The principle can be disproved by dethroning the individual. Yes. Well, I suppose if you tie on your personal identity and credibility around a particular ideology, and then you are shown to have little or questionable credibility, then yes, I guess that would damage or call into question people claiming feminism as a shield and or sword in the future. But okay, in that way, Miss Heard became both avatar and casualty of celebrity feminism. When she took the stand, she brought the modern incarnation of the women's movement into the dock too, and mobilized those who would see it brought down. Okay, you're aggrandizing Amber Heard beyond reason, probably beyond even her own reason. Amber Heard was up there representing Amber Heard. And only speaking for myself, at no point in the course of watching bits and pieces of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial did I ever imagine that Johnny Depp or Amber Heard represented anything other than Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. They are not avatars of movements. You're the one putting her up on that pedestal in this article. No reasonable person would have thought that otherwise, but okay. If an ambassador for women's rights wasn't credible, Miss Heard's mob of haters was quick to conclude, then the movement wasn't either. Oh, you did a poll of all the people that didn't like Amber Heard, and they all think that women's rights isn't a credible movement? Okay. No need to fret over those legions of unfamous women who may now think twice before reporting domestic violence. I think you are placing blame in the wrong direction, because by all evidence and by all assessment of the jury, Amber Heard lied. If anybody set up a situation where anyone would be hesitant to go and get help for domestic violence, it was Amber Heard. But you're white knighting for her. You're not even going to bring up the fact that she lost the case. You're not even going to bring up the fact and acknowledge that a jury of her peers found that she was not credible in her claims. Okay. Coupling the fortunes of feminism to celebrity might have been worth it if it had led to meaningful political victories. But such victories are hard to achieve through marketing campaigns alone, as the right wing understands. It took conservative foot soldiers decades of gritty and unglamorous mobilization, starting at the school board and county commission levels, to dominate Congress and the Supreme Court. Congress... As pop feminism enjoyed its heyday in the early 2010s, state legislatures passed more than 200 restrictions on women's access to abortion. Well, again, me not being a lawyer, and with the way things are looking for Roe v. Wade in legal precedent and otherwise, that is the right of the states. I don't know what to tell you. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, it is going to dissolve to individual states to decide how they want to handle the issue. And that's pretty much how it probably should have always been, legally speaking. Short of an actual constitutional amendment or some kind of other law passed, basing everything off of a court decision as a precedent, which is just a guide, by the way. This is the thing that, I mean, I understood this years and years and years ago, but a precedent is not a law. It is not a rule. It is a guide. It is basically glorified advice to future cases that might fall within the same realm as a previous case. But it doesn't assure an outcome. Roe v. Wade set a precedent. It did not make new law. Again, if I'm off base, by all means correct me in the comments or otherwise. Thank you, Pincalo. My God, these defenders are so predictable. This is very boilerplate in a way of, feminist arguments, or really setting aside the feminism part, just any ideological argument where you cannot allow yourself or anything involved in your quote unquote movement to be wrong. And anything that might tend to at least question it, any counterpoints, or if you're using a really bad example, but you want to be so right that you're going to ignore the truth of that example. Yeah, this is blind ideologue right here. Okay, let's see. Passed more than 200 restrictions on women's access to abortion. As Miss Clinton's campaign... Miss Clinton? I wasn't aware that Hillary Clinton did they get divorced? Did I miss that part? Okay. As Miss Clinton's campaign in the mid-2010s racked up endorsements from Miss Perry, Lena Dunham, Rosie Perez et al., Donald Trump quietly made his bargain with the anti-abortion religious right, which helped propel him to the White House. It wasn't just anti-abortion religious right that propelled Donald Trump to the White House. I don't know if you know that. But, okay. So people on one side of the abortion argument who happen to be religious, I guess, If Hillary had won, would there be something evil to be said of her having been propelled to the White House by the non-religious left? What? By the way, guys, this is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Just so you know. As hashtag Me Too, oh my God, as hashtag Me Too hashtagging dominated the news in the late 2010s, the Trump administration gutted the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and installed scores of anti-abortion judges in the courts. Oh, okay. Well, if Hillary had been in power, would she have installed pro-choice judges in the courts? And would that be equally bad for having been on the other side of the extreme? What? That is the president's prerogative. So, okay, you've made a statement of fact. And pop feminism's Achilles heel is a faith in the power of the individual star. What? Pop feminism's Achilles heel is a faith in the power of the individual star turnover communal action. Star turnover communal action. My English major is at its limits at this point. The belief that a gold-plated influencer plus a subscription list plus some viral content can be alchemized into mass activism. Well, there is that. There is that a whole bunch of basically hot air somehow represents an entire movement. I mean, you can put up a Potemkin village of a movement with a lot of backing and a lot of celebrities and then have nothing happen, a la Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. But yes, it's true. You can manufacture a popularity for something that doesn't actually exist. Thank you, Gay Rascals. Scribe is live, and I'm here. A miracle. I know. I should be sainted. Or maybe you should be sainted because it's a miracle you're here. I don't know. One way or the other. The Me Too campaign, as it evolved, was driven in no small measure by that faith. Likewise, Miss Sandberg's Lean In, a movement of freestanding C-suite aspirants, each of whom was instructed to defeat her internal obstacles to get ahead as an individual rather than organized to defeat external forces. That ethic made it attractive to the professional class, but of little use to the great mass of working women. Is that a fat joke? Celebrity, individualistic, and commercial efforts tend to betray their dowdy collective partners. When When housekeepers organizing at a Hilton Doubletree Suites hotel in Boston asked to meet in a lean-in circle with Miss Sandberg while she was in town to deliver a class day speech at Harvard University, which owned the hotel's building, her office reportedly declined, citing her busy schedule. Those ubiquitous, quote, "This is what a feminist look like" t-shirts were being manufactured by women earning about $1 an hour in a Mauritius factory. Mauritius factory. Yeah, that was one of the most hilarious things about that time. That was a story that was out there for a while. A lot of people on YouTube did stories about that. This is what a feminist looks like, as women are being exploited to make those shirts. Yeah, no, that was a level of hypocrisy and stupid corporate branding and profit hoarding that really epitomized the entire third wave feminist movement in the early 2010s. It was a selling point, just like Pride Month is for all these corporations putting rainbows on their logos for 30 days and then switching back, or trying to sell comic books or, face cleaner or anything else on the idea that it's pride centric or something. Yeah, we live in a capitalist society. So here's the question I would have our author ask. Is the feminist movement of the last, say, 10 years or so mostly hot air? Is the victim culture and the victimization that we're being told takes place on such catastrophic levels that it practically like no laws have been passed since the 1910s? Do you think maybe that too has been overblown and is somewhat fake and manufactured? Are you going to entertain that thought? I mean, you're complaining about the sales pitch, but you're not really looking at the product. Branded feminism had indeed allowed itself to be sold. Isn't it good to fight the good fight on all fronts? Sure. But without a firm conviction about what's most important, fighting one battle can mean surrendering another. Should things be so either or? If pop culture can make being a feminist a cool personal identity, well, there's one of your first problems there. If you want to make an ideology your identity, well, then if Amber Heard had made herself an identity out of feminism, and then Amber Heard's credibility is shot down, yeah, this is why you shouldn't define yourself by a movement. If you believe in something, great. You turn it into an identity? Don't know about that one. All right. Should things be so either or? If pop culture can make being a feminist cool personal identity, can't that translate into doing feminism, and thereby advance old-fashioned shoe leather organizing? Perhaps. Who wants to do shoe leather when you have a hashtag? Right? I'd be curious to know, because I don't know, if our author promoted any of these hashtags previously. Me Too, Time's Up, etc. Was she a hashtag warrior at any point? If so, is she being a hypocrite by criticizing it all now? Did she take part in any of this earlier? But the new individualist style of feminism so often cast itself as an alternative instead of as an aid to the old-fashioned communal activism. In the catastrophic 2016 election year, Tufts University exit polls found that only 20% of millennial women disagreed with the statement that feminism, quote, is about personal choice, not politics, unquote. Only 20% of millennial women disagreed with the statement that feminism is about personal choice, not politics. Okay. The division concerning personal versus collective action was, quote, one central disconnect, unquote, between the younger generation of feminists and their elders, the Washington Post concluded, oh, there's a reliable source, based on its own 2016 poll conducted with the Kaiser Family Foundation and supplemented with follow-up interviews. There's a bigger problem here. Celebrity feminism is based on the idea that a celebrity can instigate change by representing a cause. Well, that's usually the case of any celebrity taking up any cause. They bring attention to the cause. You know, like Sally Struthers and Kids Starving in Africa, or Sarah McLachlan and pets and things and dogs and animals. Yeah, that is a very old idea. Celebrity endorsement of a product of a thing. Yes. Okay. Which so often reduces the cause to a persona. That's the point. You're putting a face on the problem, a recognizable, trusted, well-known face on the problem. Yes. If you become a spokesperson for a thing in order to bring attention to a thing, then yes, you're going to be associated with that thing, right? Emma Watson and he for she. You used that earlier. Right? Was that a good thing or a bad thing? Sheryl Sandberg and Lean In. Was that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah, and especially if you make or found the movement, yes, you are tying your own personal credibility to that particular movement. If you solicit donations for a cause, and then it's found out that you, the advocate for said cause, is a criminal of some sort, yeah, that might bring into question the legitimacy of the entire endeavor. You're right. Very good. Where are we going with this? Which so often reduces the cause to a persona. We think of landmines. We think of Princess Di. I suppose there is a segment of the population that will associate getting rid of landmines with Princess Diana. That's true. Okay. And Princess Diana, okay, yeah, all right. So Princess Diana brought attention to landmines left over after wars that have either ended or ongoing wars. Okay, well, what's wrong with that? That same equation works in reverse. You can establish your persona by embracing a cause. Yeah, you can tie yourself to any particular bandwagon to make yourself feel better, yes. Virtue becomes a vanity. Yes, it does. Okay, are you finally turning a leaf here? No longer are you doing something, you're being something. Yes. Very good. Was this not obvious 10 years ago? And in our social media age, anyone with a YouTube channel or a TikTok account can give it a try. Well, I'm trying as it is. You no longer need a movie star to front for your movement. Celebrity of the self will do. A corrosive culture is abetted. What? Okay. This just might be on my ken. I don't know. Even to fixate on the Depp Heard trial, as I am doing here, at least in part, is to risk abetting a more pernicious backlash. There's your book title again. One that has never relented. One that has brought us the calamity of the Alito draft opinion. Okay. I don't know if you know this, but the opposition and exceptions to the legitimacy of Roe v. Wade is not something that Samuel Alito just thought up the other day after watching the Amber and Johnny trial. I don't know if you know that the Roe v. Wade opposition has been going on since Roe v. Wade first came into occurrence. The Samuel Alito draft opinion wasn't saying anything new about the opposition to Roe v. Wade as a constitutional bootstrap. I don't know if you know that. What has been happening in the last year or 5 did not lead to the Samuel Alito draft opinion. Unless you are a mind reader and know the mind of Samuel Alito or anyone else involved in it. But I don't think that you are, although you may think that you are. That backlash, hidden beneath years of lean-in moments and social media slapdowns over whether Taylor Swift is or isn't a feminist, never lost its force or focus, and its retribution has been and always will be meted out on the uncelebrated and unaffluent. It is true that feminists, or declared feminists over the last several years, have been decidedly petty over their no true Scotsmaning of various other celebrities who either aren't interested in feminism or aren't behaving correctly as the feminists they think they should be, and so on and so forth. I remember when, what's her name? Haley Cuckoo? Is it Haley Cuckoo? Something like that. Anyway, the girl from Big Bang Theory, when she came out and she said, I like coming home and cooking for my husband and cleaning the house and being a housewife. And then everybody and their sister jumped on her as being anti-feminist or a bad feminist or something. And then she, Kaylee Cuckoo, thank you, John Miller, Kaylee Cuckoo. And she came out with an apology and said she's always been a feminist. Yeah, that's the kind of attitude, that's the kind of schoolyard pettiness and cancel culture and mean girl stuff that's been happening for many years now that has exemplified the quote-unquote modern feminist movement. It's hard to gussy up pocketbook issues in sequins, and celebrity feminism has preferred to focus on problems of sexuality and identity over bedrock economics. Really? You want to talk about the pink tax? But abortion is inevitably an issue of economic justice. Abortion is inevitably an issue of economic justice. The right to an abortion is not just about choice, but fundamentally about the survival of women who have no choice, who are faced with dire necessity. They have a choice, save for those instances where they are forced to. They can A, not have sex, or B, take precautions when having sex. There are plenty of choices. That is, the vast swaths of women segregated in low-paying pink-collar occupations, women unable to reclaim jobs lost in a pandemic that drove them out of the workforce at 4 times the rate of men, women unable to afford education or decent housing or childcare, and soon, it seems, unable to get an abortion when they need or want one. Here's the thing, okay. that's just the way it is. Okay, if you want to have the Constitution changed and not rely on a legal decision that was as tenuous as the court employing it, it's kind of like with executive orders, like DACA. All right, DACA was instituted by presidential executive order, which means that conceivably, technically, and honestly, it should be as permanent as the person in the executive chair. Right? DACA saved politicians from having to put their names to any legislation that might have them lose votes with their either middle to conservative leaning constituents on the subject of DACA or on the subject of immigration. It was a cop-out. It still is a cop-out. It's preventing Congress from actually doing their job. And in fact, Congress wants it there because then they don't have to do their job or take any risks. All right. Roe v. Wade as a fallback instead of an actual law, or constitutional amendment. If there was a nationwide consensus on what should happen with abortion, either illegal or legal or somewhere in between, well then get your politicians to pass a law. But nobody wants to go through that effort. Nobody wants to campaign on one side or the other on such a contentious issue. They would rather fall back on the cheat, effectively, on legal terms, that Roe v. Wade has been for decades now. And all of a sudden, it's coming up as a question like, oh, you mean precedent isn't law? What? Again, not a legal expert, but effectively confronting threats to women's material welfare requires a reckoning within feminism. Are men at all part of the equation here? At all? Keeverdam, hello. This must go beyond generational indictments. It would be wrong to cast as Instagram ingenues the many millennial feminists fighting on the ground against practical impediments to equality, just as it's wrong for parvenu radicals to recast the second wave as a bourgeois movement oblivious to race and class. What are you talking? Okay, now, don't get me wrong. From time to time, I do like to show off my English degree. And I like to show off that at times I have maybe a practiced vocabulary. I said this before. After watching the Ken Burns Civil War documentary and listening to the narration of all those Civil War letters and just the beauty and poetry of basic correspondence that used to be part of our country's makeup, I kind of made an internal promise to myself that I was going to work harder to broaden my vocabulary horizons. I can understand taking pride and being able to express yourself in creative ways with neat and interesting words, but what was that? I'm going to read it one more time for those in the cheap seats and for myself. Okay. This must go beyond generational indictments. It would be wrong to cast as Instagram ingenues the many millennial feminists fighting on the ground against practical impediments to equality, just as it's wrong for parvenu radicals to recast the second wave as a bourgeoisie movement oblivious to race and class. The second wave's collective activism helped secure, among other landmark achievements, the right to abortion, a right that, in our celebrity-besotted and self-absorbed times, we're letting slip away. There is no right to abortion. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. On a legal basis, on a constitutional basis, there is no right to abortion. There was a case decision that has been used as a precedent and or a guide for cases that came along similar to it. And the Supreme Court effectively, and they love this phrase, legislated from the bench and turned it into a de facto law. But now that is starting to fall apart because the Supreme Court, as currently constructed, apparently might be on the way to overturning Roe v. Wade as an end-all, be-all legal precedent, which was never a law. And state to state, your right to abortion will vary because it is a state's right issue. That is the long and the short. as I understand it, again, I am not a legal expert. I'm not a Roe v. Wade expert. If I am off base in some way, shape, or form there, by all means, correct me. That is my understanding. That's always been my understanding. And it was just a matter of time. It was a precedent. It was tenuous. It could be overturned in a minute. And all these decades since, I mean, with that knowledge in mind, right? What, and I don't know the answer to this question. All right. What concerted effort has been made by those in favor of a pro-choice environment to actually make it law? You know, rather than just defend or protest for a legal precedent, how much effort has been put into actually making that law instead of just holding out hope that it wouldn't be overturned? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not being facetious. I don't know. Anyway, as the court's coming decision brings our attention back to basics, there are other models we can turn to. The National Domestic Workers Alliance, for instance, whose advocacy and organizing of low-income household laborers led to the passage of Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights laws in 10 states and 2 cities. Or Fair Fight Action, founded by Stacey Abrams. Protesting the legitimacy of an election, hey? Stacey Abrams? Oh, you mean celebrity influencer, warrior Stacey Abrams? Are you sure you want to prop up that again? Okay. A voting reform campaign that helped flip Georgia to the Democrats for the first time in a generation and helped rescue the nation from another term of Trumpism. Oh, okay. Or the Green Tide. I thought that was something you had to be aware of if you're swimming. A multi-pronged mass movement of Latin American feminists, Latin American, don't you mean Latinx? That stressed health, equity, and economic issues to build a wide spectrum of support and legalize abortion in Argentina, Mexico, and Colombia. Latin American feminists, what is that? Okay. In the late 19th century, the Illinois Women's Alliance brought together almost every women's organization in Chicago, including suffragists, unionists, and socialists, forced a congressional investigation into female sweatshop labor, and pushed through the state's Workshop and Factories Act, creating an 8-hour day for women and children and banning factory labor for children under 14. Oh, you mean to tell me that second wave feminism actually instigated reasonable and fair and necessary laws into place so that everyone was treated under this by the same standard under the law? Do you mean to tell me that second wave feminism was a good thing? Boy, you're pushing at an open door there. You don't need to convince me. What does that have to do with right now? What? If you do not acknowledge the truth and reality of what Roe v. Wade actually is versus what it is not, then you're not producing a fair and honest argument here. Okay? Your entire argument falls apart from the get-go because Roe v. Wade is not what you categorize it as. It is not a law. It is not a constitutional right. That's why it's called Roe v. Wade and not the XXX Act of whatever. It is a legal precedent. It is advice. It is a guide. It is not a rule. The second wave feminist Meredith Tax's recently reissued 1980 book, The Rising of the Women, chronicles the alliance and how the act was partly struck down by a hostile state Supreme Court. Okay. The coalition's efforts were reflected nationwide in the work of diverse groups, black and white. It's interesting, in this article, she's capitalized the word black and not capitalized the word white, but okay. Including the Settlement Home Movement, the Women's Trade Union League, and the Neighborhood Union in Atlanta. The last was organized by the social reformer Lugenia Burns Hope, who was married to Morehouse College's president and deployed other faculty wives to fight for education, daycare, and housing for poor black women. All of these groups subscribe to a fundamental principle enshrined in the mission statement of the Illinois Women's Alliance. Quote, The actual status of the poorest and most unfortunate women in society determines the possible status of every woman, unquote. As the Supreme Court may soon remind us, it's a principle we ignore at our peril. The end. Susan Faludi is the author of Backlash, the Undeclared War Against American Women. Oh, you left out American at the title at the top. So this essay opinion article was absolute gobbledygook. So because Johnny Depp won his defamation trial, which means that in a court of law, Amber Heard was determined to be less than credible. I'll be conservative with it. And Johnny Depp showed evidence that he was abused as a spouse. Amber Heard's still a victim. And it indicates why Samuel Alito, his draft for overturning Roe v. Wade exists. And also second wave feminism was good. And also celebrity feminism is bad. But it's also the only thing that's kept feminism in the spotlight. And if you're a celebrity and you take up a cause, you become the face of that cause. And that's either a good or bad thing, depending. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist here. She apparently did some article back in like the 90s or something that was this expose on some economic issues or some company that was closing or whatever, and apparently it was very good. But you get down to trying to explain the ideology of current fourth wave feminism. I don't even know how that's defined. I honestly don't know how that is defined. What constitutes fourth wave feminism? I thought we hadn't exited third wave feminism. But as soon as she starts trying to defend, explain, or attach Johnny Depp to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, everything just goes completely pear-shaped, as my friends across the pond might say. So there you go. Apologies again that I couldn't actually display the text of this. The article itself is locked behind a paywall, but I was able to grab the text. If you guys have anything you'd like to add before I wrap up, I was just so bowled over by the tweet title of this and the odd connection she was trying to make between a defamation trial and the potential overturning of something that's been admittedly on the edge of being overturned for decades. I just didn't know where that was going, so I had to find out. I don't think I'm any more educated on that connection than I was before I started. Anthem Ward, what's up, really? Whoa, so what's up? If they want to solve the problem, they would give men reproductive rights, because if there's no incentive for women to have kids, they'd be more responsible. Well, personally, I think that speaking of equal rights, the Equal Rights Amendment that says that under law there shall be no distinction made of the sexes, and I'm paraphrasing there, which is oftentimes heralded as the ultimate in women's empowerment and gender equity and such, or female equity. I'm for the Equal Rights Amendment, because imagine if you couldn't make laws that effectively criminalized men in parental situations, all right, or in the draft, or any number of situations where either by precedent or by statute, men are assessed as lower beings than women in some cases. I'd love to see the ERA passed. Tales of Gore, that was like 100 years ago. Yeah, maybe I'm just not as well read as I like to think I am, and I don't think that I am that much, but still, I was having a hard time drawing a line between what second wave feminist suffragists from the 1900s had to do with what's going on right now. I mean, was she lamenting? I think she was lamenting that the kind of organizing, grassroots, community sort of movement that was seen back in the olden days isn't seen today, and has been replaced with hashtag feminism and celebrity culture. That's what she's trying to say. If she's sad that the things that she thinks are important aren't being attacked in the same sort of societal way that they were back in the olden days, I guess maybe I could see that as a complaint or a lament. But Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, what? I don't know what to tell you. John Miller, Scribelight, ain't that the point, though? They are disingenuous from the get-go. Well, I mean, she might have had a point as far as just like complaining that hashtag culture is less effective than boot leather. I think that was probably the one statement that I could kind of get behind, and not just about feminism, but just in general. You know, sending out a tweet from your smartphone as you sit at a Starbucks drinking your latte because you're in support of, you know, Coney 2012 or something doesn't really do anything. Whereas actually going out there and campaigning or picketing or other things, or, you know, trying to get in touch with your representative in some way, shape, or form if you want to try to change things, that is actually how things get done. So, yes, if she's complaining that the current laziness, the slacktivism, is a frustrating replacement for the old days of when people actually got out on the streets and actually petitioned their lawmakers and so on. In general, I can get on board with that idea because I also think it's kind of ridiculous and also kind of cynically funny to watch people tweet out stuff and think that that's going to change things, except for these days getting somebody like fired from their job in Hollywood, maybe. But anyway, as far as like actually changing law or policy or whatever else, let's see, who else is here? Let's see. Oh, Lexi Mads, Wayback Machine, Scribelight. People always upload articles behind paywalls to the Wayback Machine. Yeah, well, this had just been posted like 30 minutes before I decided to go live or something, so I was able to grab the text. Let's just put it that way. Anybody got anything else they'd like to say? Tales of Gorgon. Grassroots organization was traditionally spearheaded by the men of a movement. Guess what happens when you push all the men that support your movement out of said movement? Well, that was one of the things that I guess I'm not surprised she didn't address about the whole Me Too thing. Like I said, for every legitimate revelation or disclosure of a man, specifically a man doing things behind the scenes that had to be exposed, like a Harvey Weinstein or something. There was dozens of other guys who were just vilified for no reason or vilified unjustly. And like Aziz Ansari, right? That guy was pilloried for no good reason. Some lady didn't like the fact that she didn't get a second date with the guy or something. And so she decided to say that he was abusing her and all this other stuff, except there's no evidence he ever did. And the guy was turned into a villain for a while for no reason. And so as a consequence of that, what happened? Well, you had offices and organizations and so on where you had them making intentional efforts, either individually or as a matter of policy, to separate men from women to prevent the possibility of a problem. And this, of course, had the knock-on effect of, oh, now you're segregating women, or men are staying away from women and not mentoring them and not helping them. Well, you know, when you start putting out things where just the inference of a problem is enough to get somebody fired or their reputation destroyed, or even in some cases have court action taken against them, you're not giving them an incentive to want to get near women. I mean, that's the problem when you start a witch hunt. When you start an open-ended witch hunt against an entire demographic, you're driving a wedge that is going to be bad for both sides in the long run. And it's really hard to, you know, roll that back once you push that boulder down the hill. There's a metaphor for you. Zan Wild, tweeting does not equal skin in the game. This is true. This is true. Unless you are, you know, tweeting out a donation to a rescue effort or something for a disaster. That's, you know, there are instances where, you know, hashtag activism and such can actually do something, but there has to be something, you know, tangible attached to it in a way. Let's see. Lexi Mad, Scarlet, I have something to say. Fuck Amber Heard. She can burn in hell. Well, if you believe in a hell, whatever. I think she's going to, if the photographs I've seen in the last 48 hours are true, she's going to be wandering TJ Maxx. I really wonder about those photos. Were those staged to show to get sort of like a poor me? I have to shop at TJ Maxx now. I'm so poor. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I'm going to call it there. This was just a one-off sort of impromptu stream. I don't do article readings that often, but when I come across something that just makes my brain take a nosedive. I just decided to find out. And since it's a slow day, it's a quiet day, it's a federal holiday, what the heck? I didn't have a Sunday stream, but you will find me here Wednesday morning at approximately 8 a.m., barring something else happening. I will let you guys know otherwise, for my last live review of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Because if they do a second season, I'm probably not going to watch it. And what wonders shall we observe in that last episode? Find out with me, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, Wednesday, on this channel. And then Thursday, as usual, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, another episode of TED Excellence, where I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk for information and revelation. I call it Revelmation. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me on this Monday morning. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to go out there, and if there's a content creator you happen to appreciate, let people know. Tweet out their stuff. Let them know in a tweet, tag them in it, and say, this person's great. In that vein, I want to promote a true crime channel called Dreading. 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 Great long-form podcast / documentaries on some really interesting cases. Some you may have known before, some you may have never heard of before. Good stuff. Check out Dreading. And also Dave's Lemonade. Dave's not on Twitter yet, as far as I know, but if you haven't checked out Dave's Lemonade for true crime content, go check out Dave's Lemonade and tell him Scribelight sent you. Someday I'm going to get him on a Familiar with the Matter. Someday. Everyone, have a good rest of your Monday. Have a good rest of your week. I hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.